Welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here because today we're starting a brand new book that has inspired leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries across the world. Start with Why by Simon Sinek. This isn't just a business book, it's a book about purpose, influence, and how the most inspiring leaders think differently. If you've ever felt like you're working hard but not inspiring the same passion in others, if you've ever wondered why some people and companies seem to have a loyal following while others struggle just to be noticed, this book will give you answers. And today, we begin with Chapter 1, a chapter that challenges one of the most common yet dangerous habits we all fall into, the habit of assuming we already know. Simon Sinek opens with a powerful reminder: assuming you know something can be the biggest barrier to learning, growth, and innovation. The moment we believe we have the answer, we stop asking questions. We stop listening. We stop being curious. In business, this can lead to disastrous decisions. In life, it can rob us of deeper understanding and stronger connections. Think about it. How many times have you made a choice based on what you thought was true, only to find out later that the reality was completely different? We've all done it. One of the best real-world examples of this is the story of Kodak. For decades, Kodak dominated the photography industry. They were the gold standard. And here's the surprising part: they actually invented the first digital camera in 1975. But they didn't run with it. Why? Because they assumed they knew their market so well, they believed people would always prefer film. Their entire identity and business model were built on that assumption. They failed to see that their deeper purpose wasn't just about selling film, it was about preserving memories, about giving people a way to capture moments. By holding on to the belief that film was king, they missed the opportunity to lead the digital revolution. The result? They faded into irrelevance, overtaken by companies that understood the real why behind photography. Now let's bring this closer to home. Imagine you run a restaurant. Business is good, and you assume it's because your food tastes amazing. You're proud of your recipes. But what if the real reason people keep coming back is not just the food? Maybe it's the way your staff greets them like old friends, the way you remember their names, the way they feel comfortable and welcome in your space. If you assume it's all about the food and make changes to the menu or cut staff to save costs, you might destroy the very thing that makes your place special. That's the danger of acting on assumptions. Sinek explains that many people and companies operate with a clear understanding of what they do and even how they do it, but very few can clearly articulate why they do it. The why is not about making money, money is a result. The why is the reason you exist, the cause or belief that inspires you and others. When we assume we know, we skip over this critical question. We think we already understand the reason behind our success or failure, when in reality we might be completely off. Apple is one of Simon Sinek's favorite examples of what it looks like to not fall into the assumption trap. If Apple had assumed they were simply a computer company, they might have stayed in that lane forever, competing on technical specs and prices. But their deeper why has always been about challenging the status quo and empowering individuals through beautifully designed, user-friendly technology. That's why they could move from computers to music players, to phones, to tablets, and still have customers lining up for their products. Their customers aren't just buying devices, they're buying into a belief, a purpose. That's the power of understanding your why. So, what does this mean for you? Whether you're running a business, leading a team, or simply trying to figure out your own career path, you need to ask yourself: are you making decisions based on facts and purpose, or on unchecked assumptions? If you're in sales, maybe you think your clients buy from you because you have the lowest prices. But what if the truth is they buy from you because they trust you, because they feel you understand their needs better than anyone else? If you assume it's all about price, you'll always feel pressure to lower it. But if it's about trust, then your focus should be on building relationships and delivering value that goes beyond the transaction. The lesson here is simple but powerful: be curious. Be the detective in your own life and business. Ask why again and again until you uncover the real answer. In business, that might mean surveying customers, paying attention to what they actually respond to, or even challenging long-held company beliefs. In your personal life, it could mean having more meaningful conversations with your partner, your friends, or your family to truly understand what matters most to them. The danger of assuming you know is that it keeps you stuck in a narrow lane, blind to what's possible. But the beauty of asking why is that it opens doors. It reveals truths you didn't see before. It shows you not just how to do something, but why you should do it in the first place. And when you operate from that place, from your core purpose, you inspire others to follow, not because they have to, but because they want to. So, as we close chapter 1, let this sink in. The next time you feel confident you already know the answer, pause. Ask yourself if that confidence is based on reality or on an assumption you've never tested. Take the time to dig deeper. You might be surprised at what you discover. The most successful and inspiring leaders aren't the ones with all the answers, they're the ones who never stop asking why. And that is where we begin this journey, by replacing assumptions with curiosity and letting purpose guide the way. In the next episode, we'll move into chapter 2, where Simon Sinek introduces the Golden Circle, a simple but incredibly powerful framework that explains why some leaders and organizations inspire while others don't. Once you understand it, you'll see the world differently. So stay tuned, because it's going to be eye-opening. In our last session, we explored the danger of assumptions and the importance of always digging deeper to find the truth. Today, we step into one of the most powerful concepts in the entire book, something that Simon calls the Golden Circle. This is not just an idea, it's a blueprint for how the most inspiring leaders and organizations think, act, and communicate. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it will change the way you approach your business, your career, and even your personal life. Imagine 3 concentric circles, like a target. The outer circle is labeled what? The middle circle is labeled how? And the innermost circle, the bullseye, is labeled why. Most organizations, and most people, can tell you what they do. They can even tell you how they do it, their process, their systems, their unique selling points. But very few can clearly articulate why they do what they do. And here's the key, the why is not about making money. Money is a result. The why is your purpose, your cause, your belief. It's the reason your organization exists. It's the thing that inspires you to get out of bed every morning and keeps you going even when the road gets tough. Simon explains that most companies operate from the outside in. They start with what, move to how, and often never get to why at all. For example, they might say, "We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, easy to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one?" That's a what and a how pitch. It's factual, but it's not inspiring. Now listen to how Apple communicates. We believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. And we just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Feel the difference? In the second approach, Apple starts with why. They lead with belief, and that belief resonates with people on an emotional level. Let's bring this into real life. Imagine you're at a farmer's market, and 2 stalls are selling honey. The first vendor says, "We sell organic honey made from locally sourced flowers." Sounds good, right? But the second vendor says, "We believe nature gives us everything we need for a healthy life. That's why we work in harmony with our bees, protecting their environment and letting them thrive naturally. As a result, we can offer you pure, organic honey made from local wildflowers." Which one are you more drawn to? Probably the second one, because they've connected with your values before even talking about the product. The reason starting with why is so powerful comes down to human biology. Inside our brains, we have the neocortex, the outer layer that handles rational and analytical thought. This is where we process facts, figures, and features, the what. But deeper inside is the limbic brain, which controls feelings like trust, loyalty, and decision-making. This is the part of the brain that responds to the why. And here's the fascinating thing, the limbic brain doesn't have the capacity for language. That's why people often say things like, it just feels right, or, I can't explain it, but I trust them. When you start with why, you're speaking directly to the decision-making center of the brain. The what and how give people a rational justification afterward, but the real choice happens because of emotion. Think about the last time you made a big purchase, maybe a car. You probably compared features, safety ratings, and prices. But in the end, you chose the one that felt right. Maybe it was the way the seat wrapped around you, the way the engine purred, or even the way the sales rep made you feel during the test drive. That's your limbic brain making the decision, with your neocortex jumping in afterward to justify it. Oh, it gets great gas mileage, or it's good for the family. Those are just the rational explanations for an emotional choice. And this isn't just about selling products. It applies to leadership, too. Think of Martin Luther King Jr. He didn't stand on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and say, I have a plan. He said, I have a dream. He started with why, a vision for equality and justice that resonated with millions. The details of how that dream would be achieved came later. People don't follow leaders because of what they do, they follow because of why they do it. Now, here's where many businesses go wrong. They think their why is profit. But profit is not a purpose, it's a result. If you're a realtor and your why is just to sell houses to make commissions, that's not inspiring. But if your why is to help families find a place where they can build memories, feel safe, and grow their futures, that's something people can believe in. And when people believe what you believe, they'll choose you over the competition, even if the competition is cheaper. This concept also works in personal life. Say you're trying to inspire your kids to study harder. If you start with what you need to study so you can get good grades, it's not very motivating. If you start with why, I want you to have the freedom to choose any path in life, to be able to follow your dreams without limits, you connect emotionally. Then you can move to how, that's why we'll set up a study schedule together, and finally to what, let's start with your math homework tonight. The order makes all the difference. The most important thing to remember is that starting with why is not a marketing tactic, it's a way of thinking and leading. It's about being crystal clear on your purpose and making every decision through that lens. And it works because it taps into the way humans are wired to make decisions, emotionally first, logically second. So as you reflect on this chapter, ask yourself, if someone asked you right now, why do you do what you do? Could you answer without mentioning money or profit? Could you articulate a belief, a cause, a purpose that inspires others as much as it inspires you? If the answer is no, then that's your starting point. Find your why, and you'll find not just more customers or followers, but loyal believers who will stick with you through ups and downs. In the next chapter, we'll see how this golden circle applies not just to individuals and businesses, but to entire movements and industries. And you'll start to realize that the organizations and leaders you admire most all share this one thing in common, they start with why. In Chapter 3, Simon Sinek builds on the concept of the golden circle and dives into something that at first glance seems purely scientific, but once you understand it, you'll realize it's the secret behind why, starting with why, works so powerfully. He connects the dots between human biology and decision-making, showing that our choices are far more emotional than we might like to believe. This is where he explains why people don't simply buy what you do, they buy why you do it, and why the way we're wired makes that a universal truth. Sinek starts with the idea that the golden circle isn't just a nice metaphor, it actually maps perfectly onto the structure of the human brain. The outer ring, the what, aligns with the neocortex. That's the part of the brain responsible for rational and analytical thought, the part that processes language, facts, and figures. It's where we can explain the specifications of a phone, the features of a car, or the steps of a process. But the inner circles, the how and especially the why, map onto the limbic brain. This deeper part of the brain is responsible for all human behavior, decision-making, and feelings like trust and loyalty. And here's the kicker, the limbic brain has no capacity for language. That's why it's so hard to explain your gut feelings. When you say, "I don't know, it just feels right," that's your limbic brain at work. This explains why facts alone don't inspire action. When leaders or companies communicate from the outside in, starting with what and moving to how, they're only engaging the neocortex. People can understand the information, but they don't feel compelled to act. But when you start with why, you're speaking directly to the limbic brain, the part that drives decisions, and then giving the neocortex the information it needs to justify those decisions. This is why people can be loyal to a brand, a leader, or even a cause beyond all logic. It's biology, not manipulation. Think about Harley-Davidson. Logically speaking, there are many motorcycles on the market with similar specs, performance, and even price. But Harley owners aren't just buying a bike, they're buying an identity. They're buying the feeling of freedom, rebellion, and brotherhood that Harley represents. That feeling hits the limbic brain first, long before the buyer talks about horsepower or fuel economy. This is why Harley has such a loyal following that some people even tattoo the logo on their skin. That's not rational, that's emotional commitment. This also explains why some hiring decisions fail. A resume speaks to the neocortex, the what and how of a person's experience and skills. But a true fit comes from whether the candidate's why aligns with the company's why. You can train someone to use your systems and follow your processes, but you can't train them to believe in your cause. If their belief system doesn't match yours, no amount of skill will make them fully committed. Let's bring it closer to daily life. Suppose you're choosing a school for your child. One school might hand you a brochure listing their facilities, test scores, and class sizes, all important, rational facts. Another school might start by telling you, "We believe every child has unique potential, and our mission is to nurture that potential so they grow into confident, curious, and compassionate human beings." Suddenly, you're leaning toward the second one, not because the test scores don't matter, but because you've connected emotionally to their purpose. You're thinking, "Yes, that's what I want for my child." The details in the brochure will just back up the choice you've already made in your heart. Sinek reinforces that when we communicate from the inside out, starting with why, we are in tune with how people actually make decisions. And this doesn't just apply to sales or marketing, it applies to leadership, relationships, and even personal influence. If you want people to follow you, whether you're leading a company, a movement, or a family, you must give them a reason that resonates beyond the surface level. Think of moments in history when masses of people came together, not because they were paid or forced, but because they believed. The American Civil Rights Movement wasn't just about changing laws, it was about a belief in equality and justice. The people who marched with Martin Luther King Jr. didn't show up because they had to, they showed up because they believed what he believed. That belief connected directly to the limbic brain, sparking action that no spreadsheet or policy paper could have achieved alone. This chapter is also a wake-up call for anyone trying to influence others. If you've ever been frustrated that your idea isn't gaining traction, it might be because you're leading with facts instead of beliefs. It's not that the facts don't matter, they do. But facts are how people rationalize their decisions, belief is why they make them in the first place. This is why starting with why isn't just effective, it's the only approach that works consistently across industries, cultures, and generations. So here's the takeaway. If you want to inspire action, you have to talk to the part of the brain that makes decisions, and that means leading with why. Once someone feels aligned with your purpose, their neocortex will eagerly find reasons to support that choice. But if you skip the why and go straight to the what, you're relying entirely on logic, and logic alone rarely wins hearts, loyalty, or long-term trust. In the next chapter, Simon will show us how the leaders who inspire the most loyalty and action aren't necessarily the ones with the best products or services, they're the ones who communicate and act in a way that's perfectly consistent with their why. And that consistency builds the trust that turns followers into believers. In Chapter 4, Simon Sinek turns the spotlight on a quality that separates those who inspire loyalty from those who merely transact: consistency. Not just occasional bursts of it, not just when it's convenient, but the kind of deep-rooted consistency that allows people to trust you without hesitation. It's one thing to know your why and even communicate it well, but it's another to live it so completely that every product, decision, and interaction reflects it. Without that consistency, even the most powerful why will eventually lose credibility. Sinek explains that people don't just want to hear what you believe, they want to see it lived out over and over, in ways big and small. This is because trust doesn't come from one grand statement or a single act, it comes from a predictable pattern. Think about relationships in your own life. You don't decide someone is trustworthy after one kind gesture. You trust them because, time after time, they've shown you through actions that they can be relied upon. One broken promise can plant doubt, but consistency over time builds confidence so strong that people will follow you into uncertainty simply because they believe you won't waver from your purpose. Apple is one of Sinek's favorite examples here, and for good reason. Their why has always been about challenging the status quo and empowering individuals through beautifully designed technology. That message is not just in their commercials, it's in the way they design their packaging, the way they name their products, the clean aesthetic of their stores, and even the experience of unboxing an iPhone. Everything feels intentional and aligned with their belief in simplicity and elegance. Whether you buy their latest MacBook or an older iPod, you feel the same sense of brand identity. That's consistency in action, and it makes people believe they know exactly what they'll get when they buy Apple, even before they see the product. This same principle shows up in sports. Imagine your favorite athlete. Part of what makes them a fan favorite isn't just their talent, it's the fact that they consistently deliver a certain style of play or a certain attitude. Think about someone like Roger Federer. Win or lose, he carries himself with grace, composure, and respect for the game. Over the years, fans came to know that this wasn't just a media act, it was who he was. That consistency built a relationship with his audience that went far beyond tennis matches. Sinek points out that without consistency, even a brilliant why can be diluted. Consider a restaurant that brands itself as farm to table, but sometimes sources cheap, processed ingredients when costs rise. Even if they have great food most of the time, once customers realize the inconsistency, the trust erodes. People start wondering, if they're cutting corners here, where else might they be doing it? Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's hard to rebuild. He also makes it clear that consistency doesn't mean being boring or never evolving. It's not about doing the same things forever, it's about making sure that every evolution still aligns with your core purpose. Starbucks, for example, has changed its menu countless times, added new drink formats, and adapted to customer demands. But through all those changes, their central belief in creating a third place, not home, not work, but a warm, welcoming environment, has stayed intact. Whether you walk into a Starbucks in Seattle, Tokyo, or Dubai, that feeling is consistent. The details may vary, but the why is unmistakable. Let's bring this into a more personal space. If you, as a parent, tell your child that family values include kindness and honesty, but they see you cut corners or speak unkindly to others when you're stressed, they will notice. Kids are masters at spotting inconsistency. And once they see that gap between words and actions, they're less likely to take your stated values seriously. The same thing happens in leadership. If your team hears you talk about integrity but sees you bending rules to close a deal, your credibility suffers. This is why Sinek emphasizes that consistency must be visible, not just in strategy meetings or marketing campaigns, but in the smallest day-to-day decisions. It's in how you treat employees when no customers are watching. It's in the way you respond to mistakes, both yours and others. It's in the policies you choose to enforce and the ones you let slide. Every choice sends a signal about whether your why is real or just a catchy slogan. Another key point he makes is that people are drawn to leaders and organizations whose actions align so closely with their beliefs that you can predict their behavior even without explicit communication. Think about the kind of friend you could call at 2 a.m. because you know they'd show up for you. You don't need them to say it, you've seen it before. In business, the same principle applies. If customers believe you will always stand by your values, they'll stick with you even when competitors offer cheaper or faster alternatives. A powerful example of this is Patagonia. Their why centers on environmental responsibility and sustainability. They've proven their consistency not just by selling eco-friendly products, but by making bold choices like encouraging customers to repair old gear instead of buying new, or donating Black Friday sales to environmental causes. These actions aren't about short-term profit, they're about living their why so consistently that customers see the authenticity immediately. Sinek leaves us with a reminder that this kind of alignment doesn't happen by accident. It requires discipline, constant self-checking, and sometimes the courage to make unpopular decisions in order to stay true to your purpose. It's tempting to drift toward easier, more profitable, or more popular choices, but every time you do, you're making a small withdrawal from the trust you've built. Over time, enough of those withdrawals can bankrupt even the strongest reputation. In the end, Chapter 4 teaches us that knowing your why is just the beginning. The real work, and the real reward, comes from living it consistently, so that people not only hear your purpose but see it, feel it, and experience it in every interaction. When your words, actions, and decisions all reflect the same belief over and over, you stop needing to convince people to follow you. They choose to follow you because they trust you, and that trust is worth more than any marketing budget could buy. In Chapter 5, Simon Sinek delves into one of the most fascinating aspects of leadership and influence, the way people make decisions. He argues that although we like to believe we are rational creatures who weigh facts and logic before making choices, the truth is far more instinctive. People don't just buy products, follow leaders, or join movements because of features, prices, or benefits. They do it because it feels right. That feeling isn't some vague mystery, it's the outcome of the limbic brain, the part of our mind responsible for feelings, behavior, and decision-making, but not language. This is why explaining your purpose in a way that resonates emotionally is so powerful. People can feel the truth of your why before they can articulate it. Sinek explains this using the biology of the brain. The neocortex is the part that handles rational, analytical thought and language. It's great at processing facts, figures, and comparisons. The limbic brain, on the other hand, deals with trust, loyalty, and gut feelings. When you try to sell someone purely with neocortex logic, listing specifications, prices, and features, they might nod along but still hesitate. But when you speak to the limbic brain by expressing a belief they share or a purpose they connect with, the decision feels natural to them. They might still justify it later with facts, but the choice itself happens in the emotional space. A classic example of this is Harley-Davidson. They don't sell motorcycles by telling you about engine torque or fuel efficiency. Plenty of other brands can match or beat them there. Instead, they sell the idea of freedom, rebellion, and belonging to a brotherhood. That's why Harley riders tattoo the logo on their skin. It's not about the bike, it's about the identity. That's the limbic brain at work. People make decisions that align with who they believe they are or want to be. Think about your own life. How many times have you chosen a restaurant not because it had the best online reviews but because it felt right when you walked past it? Maybe the lighting, the smell, or the friendly vibe from the staff just made you feel comfortable. Or maybe you've chosen a job not purely for the salary but because you liked the culture and could see yourself fitting in. That's your limbic brain guiding you, and it's the same for everyone else. Sinek points out that when leaders and organizations start with why, they speak directly to this deeper part of the brain. This doesn't mean ignoring facts, rather, it means framing those facts in a way that supports a shared belief. For instance, Tesla could list battery range, acceleration speed, and autopilot capabilities all day, but what really hooks people is Elon Musk's stated mission to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Buyers aren't just getting a car, they're participating in a movement that matches their environmental values. Once they're emotionally invested, the specs become proof points rather than the main selling point. This also explains why loyalty often defies logic. There are people who will wait in line for hours to get the latest iPhone even though their current one works fine. They can't fully explain why they need it, it just feels like the right choice because Apple's messaging has connected with them at an emotional level for years. Their why resonates so strongly with Apple's why that the purchase becomes a natural extension of their identity. Sinek also warns that if you try to manipulate decisions with discounts, fear tactics, or limited time offers, you may get short-term results, but you won't build lasting loyalty. That's because these methods appeal to the neocortex and create temporary spikes in behavior, but they don't forge the emotional bonds that make people stick with you through thick and thin. It's like a friendship built only on favors, the moment the benefits stop, so does the loyalty. Contrast that with a friendship built on shared values and mutual trust, where even when you can't offer each other anything tangible, the bond remains. To make this practical, imagine two real estate agents. One focuses purely on market stats, square footage, and price negotiations. The other also provides that information but frames it in the context of a shared belief. For example, I believe buying a home is about finding a place where your family's best memories will be made, and I'm here to guide you with that in mind. Clients working with the second agent aren't just buying property, they're investing in a vision they connect with. That connection will make them more likely to refer the agent, forgive small mistakes, and return for future business. Sinek drives home that the key is authenticity. You can't just slap a why on top of a business strategy and expect it to work. If your why is not genuine, people will sense the disconnect. Humans are remarkably good at detecting insincerity, even if we can't always articulate why. That's why brands that jump on the bandwagon of social causes without a real history or commitment often face backlash. Customers feel the inconsistency between words and actions, and trust erodes quickly. This chapter leaves us with a clear truth: real influence comes when you start with why and let it guide every message, product, and interaction. When you connect with people on that deep emotional level, they don't just buy what you sell, they believe in what you believe. And when that happens, the relationship moves beyond transactions into the realm of loyalty, advocacy, and shared purpose. They're not just customers anymore, they're part of your tribe. In Chapter 6, Simon Sinek explores the fascinating relationship between trust and leadership. He emphasizes that people don't just follow those who have authority, they follow those they trust. And trust isn't built by delivering perfect results every single time, it's built through consistency of purpose, honesty in action, and a willingness to stand for something bigger than yourself. In a world where we are bombarded with messages and surrounded by choices, trust becomes the deciding factor that makes someone choose you over anyone else. Sinek uses the concept of the tipping point of loyalty. When people trust you, they're more forgiving when things go wrong, and they're more willing to give you their attention, time, and money because they believe you won't betray that trust. But here's the key: trust can't be demanded, it has to be earned over time. Think about your own relationships. If a friend is always there for you, shows up when they say they will, and acts in line with their words, you feel safe with them. If they occasionally mess up, you're quick to forgive because they've built a foundation of reliability. But if someone makes big promises but often disappears or acts in ways that contradict their words, you hesitate to count on them. The same dynamic applies in business and leadership. One powerful example is Costco. Their return policy is famously generous. People can return almost anything, sometimes even without a receipt. While some businesses might fear customers taking advantage, Costco trusts their members, and in return, customers trust Costco. This mutual trust has built a loyal customer base that doesn't shop there just for prices, but because they feel valued and respected. That's the difference between transactional relationships and trust-based ones. Sinek highlights that the most successful leaders don't just talk about trust, they design their organizations to nurture it. This means transparency in decisions, consistency in messaging, and aligning actions with values. If you say, customers come first, then you prove it not just when it's convenient but especially when it's costly. Imagine a small family-owned cafe where the owner remembers your name, asks about your kids, and once, when they accidentally got your order wrong, they didn't just replace it but gave you a free dessert with an apology. You'd probably come back again and again, not because of the dessert, but because of the feeling that they genuinely care. Sinek also explains that trust comes from shared values and beliefs. When people believe you stand for the same things they do, their connection to you deepens. That's why purpose-driven companies inspire more loyalty. Take Patagonia as an example. They're not just selling outdoor gear, they openly advocate for environmental sustainability, even urging customers not to buy more than they need. They've stayed consistent in this message for years, and customers who care about the environment feel proud to buy from them. They're not just purchasing jackets, they're supporting a cause that aligns with their identity. But here's an important point Sinek makes: trust doesn't come from perfection, and trying to appear flawless can actually harm credibility. People trust those who are real, who admit mistakes, learn from them, and move forward. Think about a leader who, after a failed project, openly tells their team, "I take responsibility, and here's how we'll do better next time." That moment of humility doesn't make them weaker, it makes them more trustworthy because they're showing authenticity. Trust also requires patience. It's not something that's built in a day or a week. It's like planting a tree. At first, you don't see much happening above the soil, but roots are growing underground. Every honest action, every fulfilled promise, every moment you put others before short-term gain is like watering that tree. And one day, when a storm comes, a business crisis, a public mistake, a market downturn, those deep roots will keep the relationship standing. Your customers, team, or community will stick with you because the trust you've built has made you part of their sense of security. Sinek's lesson is clear: starting with why and staying true to it builds trust faster and stronger than any marketing campaign. You can't shortcut this process with gimmicks. You can't replace genuine connection with clever slogans. People want to feel that you believe what you're saying, that your actions match your words, and that you'll be there tomorrow just as you are today. And once they trust you, they'll follow you not just because they have to, but because they want to. Think about this in your own work or life. If you're a realtor, it's not just about selling houses, it's about helping people find a place where their lives will unfold, where memories will be made. When clients sense that you're genuinely invested in their happiness rather than just your commission, they trust you. And when that trust is there, even if the process has bumps along the way, they'll still refer you and call you years later for their next move. In the end, Sinek leaves us with a powerful truth: trust is the glue that holds relationships, teams, and businesses together. Without it, all you have are transactions. With it, you have something far more valuable: loyalty, connection, and a shared sense of purpose. And just like starting with why, trust works from the inside out. It starts with you, your values, and your willingness to live them every single day. When we think of a tipping point, we often imagine that magical moment when an idea, a movement, or a product suddenly takes off. One day, hardly anyone knows about it, and the next, it's everywhere, on social media, in conversations, in the news. But Simon Sinek wants us to look deeper: what actually causes that moment to happen? And more importantly, how can leaders and visionaries create the right conditions for it? The truth is, a tipping point is not just about luck or timing, it's about building momentum over time and connecting with the right people in the right way. In this chapter, Sinek ties the concept of the tipping point to his golden circle idea. He explains that people don't join a movement just because it's popular, they join because it resonates with something inside them. And if you want your idea to spread far enough to reach the tipping point, you must connect with those who believe in your why before you try to reach the masses. Let's look at real life to understand this better. Think about the early days of the iPod. When Apple released it, there were already dozens of MP3 players on the market. Many had similar features, some even better battery life, and they were cheaper. But Apple didn't market the iPod by focusing on gigabytes or technical details. They marketed it with one simple, emotional line: 1,000 songs in your pocket. That spoke directly to a deeper need, the freedom to take your music anywhere, to make your life feel richer and more connected. Apple's early adopters didn't just buy a gadget, they bought into a vision of freedom, individuality, and creativity. And because those first believers shared Apple's why, they told their friends, and their friends told their friends. The tipping point happened not because Apple had the most advanced technology, but because it had the clearest why. Sinek uses the law of diffusion of innovation to explain this process. Picture a bell curve. At the far left are the innovators, those adventurous, risk-taking people who try something new before anyone else. Next come the early adopters, visionaries who are quick to see the potential of a new idea and spread it. Then you have the early majority, late majority, and laggards, who are slower to adopt. The tipping point happens when enough early adopters have embraced an idea that the early majority feels comfortable joining in. But here's the catch: you can't skip straight to the majority. If you try to appeal to them before the innovators and early adopters are on board, you'll likely fail. Think of it like starting a party. If you invite 100 people and the first 10 who arrive are awkward and not enjoying themselves, the next 20 who show up will probably leave early. But if the first 10 are excited, dancing, and having fun, everyone else who comes in will feel that energy and want to stay. The early energy and belief set the tone for everything that follows. That's exactly how tipping points work for businesses, social causes, and movements. In real estate, you can see this principle at work too. Let's say you're marketing a new housing development. If you try to attract the broad market right away with generic, low prices ads, you'll blend into the noise. But if you start by connecting deeply with a smaller group, maybe first-time buyers who want to be part of a sustainable, eco-friendly community, you're more likely to build loyalty and word of mouth. Those early believers will talk passionately about your project, helping you reach a tipping point much faster than if you tried to convince everyone at once. Sinek also warns about what happens when organizations lose touch with their early believers. The energy that drives a movement comes from those first adopters who are emotionally invested. If you start shifting your focus solely to profit, volume, or popularity, you risk alienating the very people who made the tipping point possible. This is why brands like Harley-Davidson remain so successful. They don't just sell motorcycles, they sell belonging, freedom, and rebellion. Their early believers are still at the heart of their marketing and community, decades after the company first tipped into mainstream success. Another great example is the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't try to convince every single American to join the cause from the start. He spoke to those who already shared the belief that change was possible and necessary. His "I Have a Dream" speech didn't outline a step-by-step policy plan, it painted a vision that connected emotionally with early adopters of the movement. Those people then became the carriers of the message, spreading it to the wider population until the movement reached its tipping point. What we learn here is that a tipping point is not random, it's engineered by focusing first on the right people, not just the most people. It's about starting small with a powerful why and letting that energy build naturally. So, how do we apply this in our own lives and work? If you're launching a business, a social initiative, or even a personal project, focus first on finding the people who resonate deeply with your purpose. Don't dilute your message trying to please everyone, speak clearly to those who get it from the start. In time, their belief and enthusiasm will create the momentum you need to tip into larger success. Just remember, The tipping point isn't the goal in itself, it's the result of staying true to your why, building relationships with those who share it, and letting genuine belief spread. If you can do that, your idea won't just tip, it will stand the test of time. We've reached Chapter 8, a powerful exploration of the idea that leaders need followers who believe in their cause, not just customers who buy their products. This is where Sinek shows us why trust, loyalty, and long-term success depend on more than simply offering a good deal. It's about creating a shared sense of purpose and values that unite people beyond the product itself. Chapter 8 is called Start with Why, but Know How. And this is where Sinek begins to make an important distinction. Having a clear why, the core purpose, cause, or belief that drives you, is absolutely essential. But knowing why is not enough. You must also know how to bring that why to life. And this, how, comes down to the processes, the values, the discipline, and the people who make your vision a reality. Think about it this way: if your why is the blueprint for a dream house, your how is the construction team and the building process. Without the how, your blueprint remains a piece of paper. And without the why, your construction crew might build something impressive, but it won't be aligned with any particular purpose. Great leaders need both. One of the most powerful parts of this chapter is when Sinek points out that leaders may be the visionaries, the ones who see the big picture and inspire people with their why, but they often need others to figure out the operational details. Steve Jobs, for example, had a crystal clear why. He believed in challenging the status quo and thinking differently. But it was Steve Wozniak who had the technical genius to make that vision possible, and later, Tim Cook who mastered the operational excellence that allowed Apple to scale globally. Jobs inspired the direction, but without the how people in his team, Apple wouldn't have delivered on that vision. This is a lesson we can see in almost every successful business or movement. The leader is the one who lights the spark, but the followers, the believers, are the ones who fan that spark into a fire. And here's the key: those followers are not just employees or customers, they are people who share your why. That's why Sinek warns against hiring people just because they have the right skills. Instead, hire people who believe what you believe. Skills can be taught, but passion and belief can't be manufactured. Let's bring this down to a relatable everyday example. Imagine you own a real estate agency. You could hire an agent who is the top seller in the market, someone with years of experience and an impressive network. But if that person doesn't share your values, let's say your why is about putting honesty, community service, and client trust before anything else, they might bring in sales, but they could also damage your reputation by cutting corners or prioritizing commission over clients' needs. On the other hand, if you hire someone who truly believes in your why, they may start with fewer skills, but their alignment with your purpose will make them loyal, trustworthy, and willing to learn. Over time, they will not only sell homes, they will represent your brand exactly as you envisioned. Sinek explains that the people who share your why are the ones who will stick with you through tough times. When a company hits a rough patch, whether due to the economy, competition, or internal struggles, those who are only there for the money will leave. But the ones who believe in your purpose will roll up their sleeves and help find solutions. That's why so many legendary brands have survived crises. They had believers, not just customers. Southwest Airlines is one of Sinek's favorite examples. Their why was about democratizing the skies, making air travel affordable and accessible for everyone. During tough financial times in the industry, Southwest employees didn't just show up to do a job, they volunteered to help, came up with creative cost-saving ideas, and even pitched in to clean planes. Why? Because they believed in what the company stood for. Their loyalty wasn't bought, it was earned through shared belief. This principle is just as important in building your client base. Let's say you're a personal trainer. You could market yourself to everyone who wants to lose weight, and you might get a big number of short-term clients. But if you focus instead on finding those who share your belief, maybe your why is about building sustainable, healthy lifestyles rather than quick fixes, you'll attract fewer people at first, but they'll stay longer, refer others, and stick with you even if your prices go up. They're not just buying workouts, they're buying into your belief. And this is where Sinek makes another important point: the how people, the ones who make the vision happen, must also deeply understand and believe in the why. It's not enough for the visionary leader to be clear. If the people executing the vision don't share the belief, the experience will feel hollow to customers. Think of going into a store where the brand claims to care about customers, but the employees act irritated or dismissive. The why and the how are out of alignment, and you can feel it instantly. To illustrate this, Sinek uses the Wright brothers. They had a clear why: they were obsessed with human flight and believed it would change the world. But they also had a how: the technical expertise, experimentation, and dedication to make it happen. On the other hand, Samuel Pierpont Langley, who also chased powered flight, had funding, connections, and skilled people, but his why was rooted in ego and fame. Without a genuine cause to rally around, Langley's team fell apart after the Wright brothers succeeded. This is a reminder that both the why and the how must be authentic for lasting success. Let's pause here for a moment and connect this to something we all see every day: social media influencers. Some influencers blow up quickly by following trends, using flashy marketing, or hopping on viral challenges. But many of them fade just as quickly because their content lacks a clear why. It's not tied to a deeper message or purpose. On the other hand, the influencers who build loyal communities, whether in fitness, business, education, or entertainment, are those who consistently share a belief, a mission, or a cause. Their followers aren't just fans, they're believers. And that belief is what keeps them engaged long after the initial hype fades. What makes Chapter 8 so impactful is that it forces us to look beyond the surface. Success isn't just about having a cause or a great marketing message. It's about building the structures, the people, and the discipline that keep that cause alive in everything you do. The how must reflect the why, or you risk creating a disconnect that people will sense immediately. In the end, Simon Sinek leaves us with a powerful truth: your why is the heart, your how is the lungs, and your what, the product or service you offer, is the body. They all must work together for the organism to live. Ignore one, and the whole thing collapses. And as we think about applying this lesson to our own lives, the takeaway is clear: surround yourself with people, whether employees, partners, or clients, who believe what you believe. Build your processes, your culture, and your actions around that belief. If you can do that, your vision won't just survive, it will thrive, scale, and inspire others long after you've started it. Because in the end, people don't stay loyal to a company or leader because of what they do, they stay because of why they do it, and because they see that belief consistently brought to life through how they do it. That's the real magic. In today's episode of our Start With Why journey, we're diving into Chapter 9, a chapter that really hits home because it's about building trust. And not the superficial kind of trust that can be bought with discounts, special offers, or temporary incentives. No, this is about deep, unshakable trust, the kind that makes people believe in you, stick with you through challenges, and even defend you when you're not in the room. Simon Sinek makes it clear: without trust, your why is just words. With trust, your why becomes a living, breathing force that inspires action. Sinek explains that trust doesn't come from being perfect or flawless. In fact, people don't trust you because you always get it right, they trust you because you are consistent, transparent, and human. And here's the key: trust happens when your actions consistently align with your why. That's why Sinek says trust is not built overnight, it's the cumulative result of many small, consistent behaviors over time. Think about relationships in your personal life. If a friend is there for you only when it's convenient for them, you may still talk to them, but you wouldn't rely on them for something important. Now imagine another friend who may not be perfect, but they've been there in your worst moments, kept your secrets, and helped you when you needed it most. That's trust. And it works exactly the same way in business and leadership. One of Sinek's strongest examples here comes from the Marine Corps. In the Marines, trust is literally a matter of life and death. Soldiers need to know that the person next to them has their back, no matter what. This kind of trust isn't built during battle, it's built long before, during training, through shared hardship, mutual respect, and consistent behavior. When you know someone will look out for you without hesitation, that's when trust is absolute. The business world is no different. A great example is Costco. Customers don't just shop there because of low prices. They trust that Costco will offer fair deals, stand behind their products, and treat employees well. That's why even when Costco slightly raises prices, people don't feel betrayed, because over time, the company has built a reputation for acting in the customer's best interest. Now let's imagine this in a smaller scale, everyday scenario. Let's say you're a real estate agent, and you always give clients honest advice, even if it means telling them not to buy a property that would earn you a big commission. At first, some might think you're losing business. But over time, those clients will recommend you to their friends and family because they know you care about their best interests, not just your own. That's how trust builds momentum. Sinek also warns about the danger of trying to fake trust. Some companies create flashy campaigns about their values or community service but behave differently behind closed doors. The problem is, people eventually notice the disconnect between the message and the behavior. And when that happens, trust is almost impossible to rebuild. Just think about companies caught in scandals. It doesn't matter how big they are, once the public believes they've been dishonest, recovery takes years, if it happens at all. Another powerful point Sinek makes is that trust is not simply about doing good things, it's about doing the right things for the right reasons. For example, a brand might donate to charity, but if it's obviously just for PR and the company doesn't live by those same values internally, it won't inspire loyalty. On the other hand, brands like Patagonia have built deep trust by consistently standing up for environmental causes, even when it means losing short-term profits. They didn't just post about sustainability, they integrated it into their operations, products, and culture. One of my favorite real-life parallels to this idea comes from sports teams. The most successful teams aren't necessarily the ones with the biggest star players, they're the ones where the players trust each other and the coach. Trust on a team means knowing that if you make a mistake, your teammates won't throw you under the bus. Instead, they'll step in, help you recover, and focus on the bigger picture, winning together. Sinek points out that trust creates a kind of emotional safety. When people feel safe, whether they're employees, customers, or community members, they're willing to take risks, share ideas, and commit more deeply. Without that safety, people hold back. They may still do their jobs or buy your product, but they won't go the extra mile for you. And that extra mile is often the difference between good and extraordinary. Here's another relatable example. Imagine you own a small cafe. A customer comes in, orders their usual coffee, but today you're out of their favorite pastry. You could just say, "Sorry, we're out," and leave it at that. Or you could offer them a free coffee for the inconvenience, or suggest an alternative you genuinely think they'll love, and maybe even remember their preference for next time. That little act might cost you a few dollars in the short term, but it builds a connection and trust that can lead to hundreds of visits over the years. Sinek also makes an interesting observation about why trust is fragile. It's because trust is based on belief, not on a legal contract. You can sign all the agreements in the world, but if people don't believe you're acting in their interest, the paper means nothing. That's why trust can't be forced, it has to be earned through behavior that aligns with your why, day after day. One of the biggest takeaways from this chapter is that leaders must actively protect trust. That means making tough decisions that may hurt in the short term but preserve the long-term relationship. Johnson & Johnson's Tylenol recall in the 1980s is a classic example. After tampering incidents caused several deaths, they immediately pulled millions of bottles from shelves, at huge financial cost, to protect consumers. Their quick, transparent action preserved trust, and within a year, Tylenol regained its market share. Many experts agree that if they had hesitated, the brand might not exist today. Let's be honest, in today's world, trust is more valuable than ever because competition is fierce and attention spans are short. You can't buy loyalty, you have to earn it. And you earn it by showing up consistently, acting with integrity, and making sure your actions always reflect your purpose. So, what does this mean for us in practical terms? If you're running a business, trust means delivering on promises every single time, whether it's meeting deadlines, keeping quality high, or honoring guarantees without hassle. If you're a leader, trust means being transparent with your team, admitting when you don't have all the answers, and showing that you care about their growth and well-being. If you're building a brand, trust means creating an experience so consistent that people know exactly what to expect when they interact with you. Simon Sinek closes the chapter by reminding us that trust is not a perk of doing business, it's the foundation. Without it, your why won't inspire anyone for long. But with it, you can weather storms, bounce back from mistakes, and grow a loyal base of followers who will champion your cause for years to come. And that's the heart of Chapter 9. Trust is built slowly, through repeated alignment between what you believe, what you say, and what you do. It's earned, not claimed. And once you have it, it's one of the most valuable assets you'll ever own. In this episode of our Start With Why series, we're diving into Chapter 10, a chapter that really brings the concept of loyalty to life. This is where Simon Sinek reminds us that loyalty isn't just about customer satisfaction or repeat purchases. It's deeper, stronger, and far more valuable than that. Loyalty is about people choosing you, over and over again, not because they have to, but because they want to, even when alternatives are cheaper, faster, or more convenient. Sinek begins by making a powerful distinction between repeat business and true loyalty. Repeat business might simply mean someone's in a habit. They buy your coffee because it's on the way to work, not because they love you as a brand. But loyalty? That's when someone drives an extra 10 minutes just to get your coffee, because they believe in what you stand for, or they trust the way you do things. One of the strongest examples Sinek gives comes from Apple. There are plenty of smartphones out there that are cheaper and have competitive features, yet Apple customers line up for hours, sometimes overnight, just to be among the first to get the new iPhone. Why? Because they don't just buy what Apple makes, they buy into Apple's why, the belief in challenging the status quo and thinking differently. And once you're part of that kind of belief-driven relationship, price becomes secondary. Think about your own life for a second. Do you have a favorite restaurant you go to even though it's a little more expensive than others? Or a barber, hairstylist, or mechanic you wouldn't trade for the world because you trust them completely? That's loyalty in action. You're not staying with them because there's no alternative, you're staying because something about them makes you feel seen, valued, and understood. Sinek makes it clear, loyalty is emotional, not transactional. You can offer discounts, reward points, and clever promotions, but those only work temporarily if the deeper emotional connection isn't there. When loyalty is present, people defend you in conversations, recommend you to friends, and sometimes even forgive you when you mess up, because the relationship is built on belief, not just convenience. A great real-world case is Southwest Airlines. While other airlines focus heavily on business travelers or premium perks, Southwest built its brand around a sense of friendliness, accessibility, and treating people like people. They consistently act in line with that why, from no change fees to a playful, down-to-earth culture. Even when Southwest has hiccups, loyal customers give them the benefit of the doubt because they know the airline's core values haven't changed. Let's bring this down to a small business level. Imagine you're a realtor, and you helped a young couple find their first home. You didn't push them into the highest-priced house to make a bigger commission. You listened to their needs, fought for them in negotiations, and stayed in touch even after closing. 3 years later, they call you to sell that home and buy a bigger one. Not because you sent them monthly emails or gave them a fridge magnet, but because they trust you. That's loyalty. Sinek also points out that loyalty works both ways. If you want loyal customers or loyal employees, you have to show loyalty to them first. This is where a lot of leaders and companies fall short. They demand loyalty but make decisions purely for short-term gain, cutting staff or abandoning customers at the first sign of trouble. True loyalty is proven during difficult times. Think back to the 2008 financial crisis. Many companies laid off employees in huge numbers, often with little warning. But a few, like Barry Wemler, took a different approach. Instead of firing people, they implemented shared sacrifices. Everyone took unpaid time off, so no one had to lose their job entirely. The result? Employees became more dedicated and loyal than ever before. They saw that the company's values were real, not just words. Here's something Sinek stresses: loyalty is about the feeling people get when they interact with you. It's how you make them feel over time that cements that loyalty. It's not just the product quality or the service, it's the emotional connection. A good analogy is friendship. You don't keep a friend because they always bring you gifts, you keep a friend because of the way you feel when you're around them. Let's say you run a small bakery. If you greet your regular customers by name, remember their favorite order, and maybe throw in a free cookie for their kid now and then, they'll keep coming back, even if another bakery opens across the street with slightly lower prices. Why? Because the connection is personal, and personal connection beats transactional offers almost every time. Sinek also warns about the trap of trying to buy loyalty through perks. He uses the example of airline frequent flyer programs. These programs can keep customers flying with one airline for a while, but they don't create deep loyalty, they create dependency on the rewards. If a competitor offers a better reward, that customer can switch. Real loyalty, on the other hand, is when a customer stays with you even if the perks disappear, because they believe in you and your why. One of the most striking examples of loyalty under pressure came from Tylenol's earlier crisis that I mentioned before, and it fits here too. Customers returned to Tylenol after the recall not because of discounts or marketing, but because the company's actions proved they cared about safety over profit. When people believe your actions match your beliefs, they'll forgive mistakes and stick with you. Another relatable analogy is sports fandom. Die-hard fans stick with their team through losing seasons, bad trades, and disappointing games. They wear the jerseys, defend the team in conversations, and even plan their schedules around game days. Why? Because being a fan is part of their identity, and that's what loyalty is all about. When your brand or business becomes part of someone's identity, you've reached the deepest level of loyalty. Now, let's flip it. What destroys loyalty? The biggest killer is inconsistency between your words and your actions. If you claim to care about customers but your policies are rigid and unfriendly, loyalty erodes. If you promise innovation but release the same uninspired product year after year, people stop believing in you. And here's the most important point Sinek leaves us with: loyalty is a long game. You can't rush it. You earn it by consistently acting in line with your why, showing up for your people, and treating them as valued partners in your journey. When you do that, loyalty becomes your strongest business asset. It protects you in downturns, amplifies your growth in good times, and turns customers and employees into lifelong advocates. In the end, Chapter 10 is a powerful reminder that loyalty isn't something you demand, it's something you inspire. And the only way to inspire it is to live your why every single day, especially when it's hard. We're stepping into Chapter 11 of Start with Why, and this chapter is all about how communication works when you lead with why. Simon Sinek digs deep into how our messages are received, and why simply explaining what you do is never enough if you want to inspire action, loyalty, and belief. Sinek starts by reminding us of the golden circle: why, how, and what, and how most companies get it backwards. They start with what they do, then maybe talk about how they do it, but rarely communicate why they exist in the first place. But the most inspiring leaders and organizations flip it. They start with why, move to how, and only then talk about what. Why does this matter so much? Because human decision-making is emotional first, rational second. If you lead with facts and features alone, you're talking to the analytical part of the brain. But when you start with why, you're speaking directly to the emotional core, the part that drives behavior, loyalty, and trust. Think about a marriage proposal. If someone dropped to one knee and said, statistically, I am a financially stable person with a good credit score, a clean driving record, and a family history of longevity, so it makes logical sense for you to marry me, you'd probably laugh, or run. That's a what-driven proposal. But if they looked into your eyes and said, I can't imagine spending my life with anyone else. You make me better, and I want to build a future with you, that's starting with why. You feel it, and that feeling moves you to act. Sinek uses this same principle for brands. Apple doesn't sell computers by talking about RAM or gigahertz first. They start with, we believe in thinking differently, which connects to values and identity. Only after you buy into that belief do they explain how they make their products beautifully designed, and what the actual product is. Now, one of the most important insights in this chapter is that clarity of why doesn't just inspire customers, it guides every single communication choice you make. If you know your why, you know how to frame your stories, pick the right words, and create experiences that reinforce your beliefs. For example, if you're a real estate agent and your why is to help families find a home where they can build their dreams, your marketing should reflect that. Instead of posting listings with just 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, you could say, a cozy home where your kids can grow up playing in the backyard and where family dinners feel like the highlight of your day. You're speaking to the heart, not just the head. Sinek also points out that leading with why creates a filter for consistency. Your messaging won't feel scattered or opportunistic, it will feel aligned. Think about Harley-Davidson. Their why is about freedom and rebellion, and that comes through in every ad, every event, even the clothing. You don't see Harley suddenly promoting scooters for city commuting. That's because they know exactly what they stand for, and their communication is consistent. Another relatable example is in politics. The most successful leaders aren't the ones with the most detailed policy documents, they're the ones who can connect to a shared sense of purpose. Think about Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. He didn't say, I have a 10-point plan. He painted a vision, a why, and let people see themselves in it. Sinek warns about the danger of assuming people just get it. Even if you've been in business for years, if you stop communicating your why clearly and consistently, people's connection to you weakens. You might still have customers, but their loyalty starts to fade because they no longer feel that emotional pull. Let's break it down into a relatable day-to-day scenario. Imagine you've been going to the same local coffee shop for years. At first, they made you feel like part of the family, the barista knew your name, remembered your favorite drink, and chatted with you. That's the why in action. But then, new management takes over. The coffee's still good, but the smiles fade, and the conversations stop. The what hasn't changed, they're still selling coffee, but the emotional connection is gone. Slowly, you stop going. This is why Sinek emphasizes that communication isn't about blasting information, it's about reinforcing your why in every interaction. Whether it's an ad, a sales call, a social media post, or even a product design, the way you communicate shapes how people feel about you. A fantastic business example comes from Patagonia. Their why is about protecting the planet and promoting sustainability. And they communicate that everywhere, from their marketing campaigns to their choice of materials to their bold decision to tell customers, don't buy this jacket, in an ad, encouraging them to reuse and repair rather than consume more. That message wouldn't make sense unless you understood their why, and because customers believe in it, it works. Sinek also talks about trust. When your communication matches your actions, you build trust. But if there's a mismatch, trust crumbles quickly. He gives the example of companies that claim, people are our greatest asset, but then lay off thousands without warning just to hit a quarterly profit goal. That gap between words and behavior is deadly for loyalty. Now, let's bring this back to leadership. As a leader, your role isn't just to set the vision, it's to communicate it over and over, in different ways, until it's ingrained in the culture. This isn't about memorized slogans, it's about telling stories, sharing examples, and showing through your decisions that your why is alive and well. A small but powerful way to do this is through everyday conversations. Let's say you're a team leader and a new project comes in. Instead of jumping straight to deadlines and deliverables, you start by saying, "This project matters because it helps us bring our mission of empowering small businesses to life." That's leading with why. It sets the tone before you get into the details. And here's the thing, communicating your why isn't just for the outside world. Your employees, your partners, your suppliers, they all need to hear it too. In fact, Sinek argues that internal communication is even more critical than external marketing. Why? Because if your own people aren't inspired, they can't inspire anyone else. Look at companies like Zappos. Their internal culture is all about delivering happiness. They don't just tell customers that, they tell their employees, live it internally, and then let it flow outward. That's why their customer service stories have become legendary. So here's the takeaway from Chapter 11, great communication isn't about being clever or flashy, it's about being clear, consistent, and anchored in your why. When you do that, you're not just selling products or services, you're inviting people to be part of something bigger. In the end, Sinek leaves us with this truth: people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And the way you communicate determines whether they believe you. So make every word, every story, and every action a reflection of your why, and watch how it transforms the way people respond to you. Today we're diving into Chapter 12 of Start with Why, and this one brings the idea of the golden circle into the world of business partnerships, hiring, and building teams. Simon Sinek makes one thing very clear here: it's not enough to have a strong why at the top. If you want your why to live, breathe, and make an impact, you need people around you who believe what you believe. This chapter really hits home because it reminds us that an organization isn't just a logo, a product, or a marketing message. It's a group of people. And the beliefs of those people, especially the ones closest to the front lines, will decide whether your why is actually felt in every customer interaction, every decision, and every outcome. Sinek uses a great analogy. He says it's like forming a band. You can be an incredible songwriter with a vision for the kind of music you want to create, but if your bandmates don't share that same passion, the music will feel disconnected. They might play all the right notes, but the magic will be missing. The same goes for business. Skills and talent matter, but shared beliefs are the glue that holds everything together. One of the biggest mistakes companies make is hiring based solely on what someone can do, rather than why they want to do it. On paper, a candidate might have all the right qualifications, degrees, and experience, but if they don't align with your why, there's a limit to how far that relationship can go. They might perform tasks, but they won't carry the torch of your vision when you're not in the room. Sinek gives the example of Southwest Airlines. Their why has always been about democratizing air travel, making it fun, accessible, and affordable for the average person. When they hire, they don't just look for people who have worked in aviation before. They look for people who genuinely enjoy serving others, have a sense of humor, and believe in making flying an enjoyable experience. That's why you get flight attendants cracking jokes during safety briefings or going the extra mile to make passengers feel at home. That kind of behavior can't be scripted, it comes from belief. Now, let's bring that into a real-life example outside of big corporations. Imagine you own a small bakery, and your why is to bring joy to people's mornings with fresh, homemade bread. If you hire someone who sees this as just a job and doesn't care about customers, they might still bake bread, but they won't smile at people, won't chat with regulars, and won't notice when a loyal customer's favorite pastry is out of stock. The product is the same, but the experience, the soul of your business, is lost. Sinek points out that when you hire people who believe in your why, you don't have to micromanage. They naturally make decisions that align with your vision, even when no one's watching. That's because they aren't just working for a paycheck, they're working for a cause they believe in. He also flips this idea around for partnerships. If you collaborate with another company that doesn't share your beliefs, the relationship will feel forced. Even if you're both talented and successful in your own ways, your different motivations will create friction. He compares it to two people trying to dance together but moving to different songs. No matter how skilled they are, the performance won't sync. An example here is Apple and music labels during the launch of iTunes. Apple's why was about empowering individuals to think differently and giving them tools to express themselves. Music labels, at the time, were mostly focused on protecting profits and limiting distribution. The partnership only worked because Steve Jobs was able to frame the collaboration in a way that spoke to the label's needs while still pushing Apple's mission forward. But long-term, this kind of mismatch can cause strain unless both sides eventually align more closely in belief. Sinek warns that some leaders try to convert people who don't share their why, but this rarely works. You can teach skills, but you can't force belief. If someone doesn't connect emotionally to your cause, they might nod along in meetings, but deep down, they're just going through the motions. That's why the hiring process, the onboarding process, and even how you present your company publicly should all be designed to attract believers and naturally filter out non-believers. Think about sports teams. The most successful ones don't just draft based on raw talent, they look for players who fit the team culture. A star athlete with a toxic attitude can ruin team chemistry, while a less famous player with the right mindset can elevate everyone around them. It's the same in business, a shared why makes the whole team greater than the sum of its parts. Sinek also talks about how this approach leads to lower turnover. When people feel they're part of something meaningful, they stick around. They're not constantly scanning LinkedIn for the next job because they're already getting something far more valuable than money alone, they're getting fulfillment. One really relatable example here is nonprofit organizations. The pay is often lower than in the corporate world, but people join and stay because they believe in the mission. They'll work long hours, face challenges, and keep pushing forward because they feel part of something bigger. That's the same emotional fuel your why can generate in any type of business. Sinek closes the chapter by reminding us that your why is like a magnet. It doesn't just attract customers, it attracts the right people to work with you, build with you, and grow with you. But magnets work both ways, they also repel. And that's a good thing. If your why is clear, people who don't align will naturally drift away, leaving you with a stronger, more committed core team. The big lesson here is that a clear why makes it easier to find the right people and harder to lose them. Skills can be taught, strategies can change, but belief is what keeps people motivated when things get tough. And when you surround yourself with people who believe what you believe, your why doesn't just stay alive, it gets amplified, multiplied, and passed on to every single person your organization touches. So, as you think about your own business, team, or partnerships, ask yourself, am I surrounded by people who share my why? Or am I just collecting resumes that look good on paper but don't connect to my mission? Because at the end of the day, the success of your why depends not just on you, but on everyone who carries it forward. If you've been following along in our deep dive into Start With Why by Simon Sinek, you already know that understanding your why, the core purpose that drives you, is the foundation for lasting success, loyalty, and influence. We've explored how leaders and organizations who put their why at the center outperform those who focus only on what or how. But here's a question many people ask at this stage: where does our why come from? Is it something we invent? Something we learn? Or is it something we've always had within us, waiting to be discovered? In Chapter 13, Simon Sinek digs deep into the origins of a why, and the truth is both comforting and challenging. Your why is not something you create, it's something that already exists. It's formed in your early life experiences, shaped by the things you've been through, the values you've absorbed, and the relationships you've built. It's not about coming up with a clever slogan or branding line, it's about uncovering what's already at the core of who you are. Imagine your why like a fingerprint. You didn't choose it, you didn't design it, but it's uniquely yours, shaped by your journey, your hardships, your triumphs, and your environment. This is why two people can have the same profession, sell the same products, or even work in the same company, and yet have very different whys. The difference is in the life story that shaped them. One of the most powerful ideas Sinek explains is that our why is fully formed by our mid to late teenage years. That means the defining moments, the mentors who influenced you, the struggles you overcame, and even the painful experiences from your youth all feed into the sense of purpose you carry today. Think about it, the teacher who believed in you when no one else did, the family hardship that taught you resilience, the volunteer work that showed you the value of helping others, those aren't random memories. They're clues. Let's make this more tangible with a real-life example. Consider Oprah Winfrey. Growing up in poverty and facing multiple traumas, she developed a deep empathy for human suffering. Her why became clear: to help people live their best lives and to give them a platform to share their stories. Every career move she made, from talk show host to philanthropist to media mogul, ties back to that original why shaped in her youth. She didn't create her why when she became famous, it had been forming long before anyone knew her name. Or think about Steve Jobs. His early life was marked by being adopted, dropping out of college, and traveling to India seeking spiritual clarity. Those experiences gave him a deep belief in the power of individual creativity and the importance of thinking differently. That became his why: to empower people to unleash their creativity through beautifully designed technology. Apple's iconic slogan, "Think Different," wasn't just marketing. It was Jobs' personal mission statement. Simon Sinek makes it clear that if you want to find your why, you don't brainstorm it in a conference room. You reflect on your past. You gather your life stories, especially the moments when you felt most proud, most fulfilled, and most alive. This process works for individuals and for organizations. A company's why often comes from the founder's personal story. Take the example of Howard Schultz and Starbucks. Schultz grew up in a poor neighborhood in Brooklyn and saw firsthand how his father struggled after being injured and losing his job. He dreamed of creating a company that would treat its employees with dignity and care, offering them health benefits and a supportive work culture. That became Starbucks' why, not just to sell coffee, but to create a third place between home and work where community and respect thrive. The beauty of this chapter is that it removes the pressure to come up with a purpose. Your why is already there, waiting for you to uncover it. And once you find it, it becomes a powerful compass for decision-making. When you face opportunities, challenges, or temptations, you can ask, does this align with my why? If the answer is yes, you move forward. If not, you step away, even if it seems profitable in the short term. Let's bring this to a more personal, relatable level. Imagine you're a realtor. You could say your purpose is simply to sell houses. But if you dig deeper, maybe you realize that your real motivation comes from a childhood memory of your parents finally buying their first home after years of renting. You remember the pride, the joy, and the stability it brought to your family. Suddenly, your why isn't about selling houses, it's about helping families find that same sense of belonging. That emotional core changes everything, from how you talk to clients to how they feel about working with you. Now, here's an important point Sinek emphasizes: while your why is fixed, the way you express it, your how and what, can evolve over time. For example, your why might be to inspire creativity in others. Early in your career, you might do that by being a teacher. Later, you might write books or run workshops. The vehicle changes, but the why remains the same. This is why so many people who chase career success without understanding their why end up feeling unfulfilled, even when they've made it. They climb the ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. When you know your why, you can choose the right wall from the start. Let's take another real-world example, Elon Musk. Love him or hate him, his why is clear: to ensure the survival and advancement of humanity. Whether it's through Tesla, sustainable transport, SpaceX, interplanetary travel, or even the Boring Company, infrastructure innovation, every venture connects back to that central mission. If tomorrow he started a new company making renewable energy solutions for homes, it would still align perfectly with his why. Finding your why isn't just a personal development exercise, it's a leadership tool. Leaders who share their why openly inspire trust and loyalty because people can see the authenticity behind their actions. This is why companies like Patagonia thrive. Founder Yvon Chouinard's why is to protect the environment and inspire responsible consumption. That's why Patagonia famously encouraged customers to repair their old jackets instead of buying new ones, an unusual move for a retail business, but one that perfectly matched its why. So, how do you uncover your own why? Simon Sinek suggests gathering a trusted friend or colleague and walking through your life stories together. Sometimes, we're too close to our own experiences to see the patterns, but someone else can spot them. Look for themes, moments when you felt your work or actions made a real difference. Those moments are your signposts. When you find your why, everything changes. Decisions become clearer. Work feels more meaningful. And most importantly, people are drawn to you because they sense your purpose. It's like a lighthouse, steady, unwavering, guiding others to safe harbor. In closing, Chapter 13 reminds us that your why is not a marketing gimmick or a trendy slogan. It's the result of your life's unique journey. It's embedded in your experiences, values, and beliefs. Once you uncover it, you hold a lifelong compass that will guide your actions, attract the right people, and keep you grounded no matter what challenges come your way. And here's the most inspiring part: your why has the power to outlive you. If you build a business, a movement, or a legacy around it, that purpose can continue to inspire others long after you're gone. Just think of Martin Luther King Jr. His why, equality and justice for all, continues to move hearts decades after his passing. If you've been following along with this series, you're probably starting to think about your own why. That's exactly the point. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to use your why to build organizations and movements that can inspire not just for years, but for generations. If you've been following along in our deep dive into Start With Why by Simon Sinek, you already know that understanding your why, the core purpose that drives you, is the foundation for lasting success, loyalty, and influence. We've explored how leaders and organizations who put their why at the center outperform those who focus only on what or how. But here's a question many people ask at this stage: where does our why come from? Is it something we invent? Something we learn? Or is it something we've always had within us, waiting to be discovered? In Chapter 13, Simon Sinek digs deep into the origins of a why, and the truth is both comforting and challenging. Your why is not something you create, it's something that already exists. It's formed in your early life experiences, shaped by the things you've been through, the values you've absorbed, and the relationships you've built. It's not about coming up with a clever slogan or branding line, it's about uncovering what's already at the core of who you are. Imagine your why like a fingerprint. You didn't choose it, you didn't design it, but it's uniquely yours, shaped by your journey, your hardships, your triumphs, and your environment. This is why two people can have the same profession, sell the same products, or even work in the same company, and yet have very different whys. The difference is in the life story that shaped them. One of the most powerful ideas Sinek explains is that our why is fully formed by our mid to late teenage years. That means the defining moments, the mentors who influenced you, the struggles you overcame, and even the painful experiences from your youth all feed into the sense of purpose you carry today. Think about it: the teacher who believed in you when no one else did, the family hardship that taught you resilience, the volunteer work that showed you the value of helping others, those aren't random memories. They're clues. Let's make this more tangible with a real-life example. Consider Oprah Winfrey. Growing up in poverty and facing multiple traumas, she developed a deep empathy for human suffering. Her why became clear: to help people live their best lives and to give them a platform to share their stories. Every career move she made, from talk show host to philanthropist to media mogul, ties back to that original why shaped in her youth. She didn't create her why when she became famous, it had been forming long before anyone knew her name. Or think about Steve Jobs. His early life was marked by being adopted, dropping out of college, and traveling to India seeking spiritual clarity. Those experiences gave him a deep belief in the power of individual creativity and the importance of thinking differently. That became his why: to empower people to unleash their creativity through beautifully designed technology. Apple's iconic slogan, "Think Different," wasn't just marketing. It was Jobs' personal mission statement. Simon Sinek makes it clear that if you want to find your why, you don't brainstorm it in a conference room. You reflect on your past. You gather your life stories, especially the moments when you felt most proud, most fulfilled, and most alive. This process works for individuals and for organizations. A company's why often comes from the founder's personal story. Take the example of Howard Schultz and Starbucks. Schultz grew up in a poor neighborhood in Brooklyn and saw firsthand how his father struggled after being injured and losing his job. He dreamed of creating a company that would treat its employees with dignity and care, offering them health benefits and a supportive work culture. That became Starbucks' why, not just to sell coffee, but to create a third place between home and work where community and respect thrive. The beauty of this chapter is that it removes the pressure to come up with a purpose. Your why is already there, waiting for you to uncover it. And once you find it, it becomes a powerful compass for decision-making. When you face opportunities, challenges, or temptations, you can ask, does this align with my why? If the answer is yes, you move forward. If not, you step away, even if it seems profitable in the short term. Let's bring this to a more personal, relatable level. Imagine you're a realtor. You could say your purpose is simply to sell houses. But if you dig deeper, maybe you realize that your real motivation comes from a childhood memory of your parents finally buying their first home after years of renting. You remember the pride, the joy, and the stability it brought to your family. Suddenly, your why isn't about selling houses, it's about helping families find that same sense of belonging. That emotional core changes everything, from how you talk to clients to how they feel about working with you. Now, here's an important point Sinek emphasizes: while your why is fixed, the way you express it, your how and what, can evolve over time. For example, your why might be to inspire creativity in others. Early in your career, you might do that by being a teacher. Later, you might write books or run workshops. The vehicle changes, but the why remains the same. This is why so many people who chase career success without understanding their why end up feeling unfulfilled, even when they've made it. They climb the ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. When you know your why, you can choose the right wall from the start. Let's take another real-world example: Elon Musk. Love him or hate him, his why is clear: to ensure the survival and advancement of humanity. Whether it's through Tesla, sustainable transport, SpaceX, interplanetary travel, or even the Boring Company, infrastructure innovation, every venture connects back to that central mission. If tomorrow he started a new company making renewable energy solutions for homes, it would still align perfectly with his why. Finding your why isn't just a personal development exercise, it's a leadership tool. Leaders who share their why openly inspire trust and loyalty because people can see the authenticity behind their actions. This is why companies like Patagonia thrive. Founder Yvon Chouinard's why is to protect the environment and inspire responsible consumption. That's why Patagonia famously encouraged customers to repair their old jackets instead of buying new ones, an unusual move for a retail business, but one that perfectly matched its why. So, how do you uncover your own why? Simon Sinek suggests gathering a trusted friend or colleague and walking through your life stories together. Sometimes, we're too close to our own experiences to see the patterns, but someone else can spot them. Look for themes, moments when you felt your work or actions made a real difference. Those moments are your signposts. When you find your why, everything changes. Decisions become clearer. Work feels more meaningful. And most importantly, people are drawn to you because they sense your purpose. It's like a lighthouse, steady, unwavering, guiding others to safe harbor. In closing, Chapter 13 reminds us that your why is not a marketing gimmick or a trendy slogan. It's the result of your life's unique journey. It's embedded in your experiences, values, and beliefs. Once you uncover it, you hold a lifelong compass that will guide your actions, attract the right people, and keep you grounded no matter what challenges come your way. It's a bit like running a marathon. Sure, there are other runners, but the real race is with yourself, your pace, your endurance, your mindset. And sometimes, seeing another runner's performance can inspire you to push yourself harder, not because you hate them, but because they remind you of what's possible. To wrap this chapter up, Simon Sinek's message is clear: the new competition is about playing an infinite game, where the goal isn't to win in the short term, but to keep improving, keep serving your why, and keep inspiring others. When you adopt this mindset, you stop chasing someone else's dream and start living your own. And the beautiful irony? When you focus on being better than yourself, you often end up leading the field without even trying. If this mindset shift resonated with you, imagine what would happen if your whole team, company, or community adopted it. The level of creativity, trust, and progress would be off the charts. And that's exactly what we'll explore as we move into the next and final parts of this book. As we come to the end of Start With Why by Simon Sinek, I want you to take a moment and really let these lessons sink in. This isn't just another leadership or business book. It's not simply a collection of strategies or marketing tricks. This is a philosophy, a new lens through which you can see your entire life, your career, and your relationships. Simon Sinek's core idea is deceptively simple but deeply powerful: people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The why is the heartbeat of every movement, every cause, every thriving business, and every great leader throughout history. It's the anchor that keeps you steady in turbulent times and the beacon that draws others toward you when the world feels noisy and crowded. Think about the most impactful people and brands in your life. Chances are, they didn't just give you a product or a service, they gave you a belief to be part of. Apple didn't simply sell you a phone, they gave you a tool to challenge the status quo and unleash creativity. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just demand equality, he painted a vivid vision of a better world and invited millions to share in that dream. Elon Musk doesn't just build cars, he's on a mission to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. These leaders and organizations didn't start with what, they started with why. And that why resonated with people on a level far deeper than logic or numbers ever could. It connected to emotions, to values, to identity. And when you connect on that level, you don't just have customers or followers, you have believers. But here's the truth most people overlook: finding your why is not a 1-hour brainstorming session. It's a journey of reflection, self-awareness, and honest questioning. It's about peeling back the layers of what you do until you arrive at the core belief that drives you. Sometimes, it's born from a personal struggle, a defining moment, or a deep frustration with the way things are. Other times, it's been there all along, quietly guiding you, waiting for you to put it into words. And once you find it, everything changes. Decisions become clearer. Your team becomes more united. Your message becomes more powerful. Obstacles still come, but they don't shake you in the same way, because you know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. Let's bring this to real life. Imagine two coffee shops side by side. One sells coffee for $3 a cup. The other sells coffee for the same price, but its mission is to ethically source every bean, pay farmers fairly, and use profits to build schools in the communities where the beans are grown. Which one are you more likely to support long-term? Even if the coffee tasted identical, most of us would choose the one whose why speaks to our values. That's the power of purpose. Or think of a small business owner. Without a why, their marketing feels like everyone else's: discounts, promotions, limited time offers. But with a why, maybe it's about empowering local artisans, or giving back to the neighborhood that raised them. Every product, every social media post, and every customer interaction becomes part of a larger story. And people love stories they can believe in. Your why can transform how you sell, how you lead, how you hire, and even how you live. It can help you inspire a team that shows up for more than just a paycheck. It can help you attract customers who stick with you through thick and thin. And it can make your work, no matter how challenging, deeply fulfilling. So here's your challenge after finishing this book: take time to uncover your why. Write it down. Share it. Test it in your conversations. See how it changes the way people respond to you. Because when you start with why, you move from being just another option to becoming the obvious choice. And remember, your why is not just for business. It's for life. It's for the relationships you build, the causes you support, the way you raise your family, the way you choose to spend your precious time on this earth. That's the real takeaway from Start With Why. It's not about finding customers, it's about finding believers. It's about leading with authenticity and inspiring action. And when you live that way, you leave a legacy that lasts far beyond you. So that wraps up this incredible journey through Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I truly hope this deep dive has inspired you to dig deep, ask the tough questions, and uncover the purpose that will guide you to your greatest success. If you enjoyed this breakdown, I'd love for you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into another powerful, life-changing book. And I'll leave you with this thought: you don't have to be a CEO, a politician, or a world leader to make a difference. You just have to know your why, live it every day, and share it with the world. That's how movements begin. That's how change happens. That's how legacies are built. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay inspired, stay committed, and always, start with why.